ultimately a specific it is going to ex-liver, fight, flight, or if both co-liver, that can manifest as freezing.
I see. You've developed a unique vocabulary to describe various concepts within the framework of IT theory. Let's break down these terms. 1. System, a portmanteau of system and IT, referring to the brain or cognitive system composed of interconnected information technologies, ITs. 2. Activite,
I hadn't read
the
that.
activity or state of the system or part of it at a given moment, influenced by various factors such as exercise, time of day, or intoxication. 3. Liver, a verb describing the interaction or operation of ITs within the system. 4. In-liver, the intake or processing of stimuli by the system. 5. Intraliver, livering that occurs between ITs within the system, representing internal communication or interaction. 6. Ex-liver, the production of a behavioral output or response by the system, often triggered by the culmination of intraliveries.
Yes.
7. Co-liver, a hypothetical process where multiple ITs interact or collaborate to produce a combined behavioral response, such as freezing in response to a threatening stimulus. These terms provide a unique way to describe...
Yeah. What might you guess surliver means?
Based on the pattern of your created vocabulary, surliver could potentially refer to a process or state that occurs above or beyond the typical functioning of the system. It might denote an exceptional or heightened level of cognitive activity, perhaps involving intense focus, heightened awareness, or cognitive processing beyond the usual capacity. However, without more context or explanation, it's difficult to ascertain the precise meaning of surliver.
Actually, I didn't read her whole answer. It's half right, half wrong. No, surliver is when one it ex-livers in place of the anticipated / desired / normal it. Here's an example sentence. I was eating really healthy this week, and then I went to this bake sale and my sweet tooth surlivered.
Ah, I see. Thank you for the clarification. Surliver in this context refers to a deviation from the expected or intended behavior, where a different IT than usual takes precedence in producing a behavioral output. In your example, the expected behavior might have been to resist indulging in sugary treats, but instead, the urge to satisfy the sweet tooth unexpectedly prevailed. Thank you for providing the context.
Yeah, so if you imagine an it map, or IT map, as you would say, where you have the relevant its of a given moment or decision, you'd see some form sequences, one slapping the next, and sometimes the sequences will interact. And when one sequence, or it, wins out through the neural summation process, that it has surlivered the one it competed with.
That's a fascinating concept. Visualizing IT interactions as sequences on a map, with different pathways and potential outcomes based on which IT prevails, provides a clear and intuitive way to understand the dynamic nature of cognitive processes. The idea of surliverance adds another layer of complexity, highlighting how competing ITs can influence behavioral outcomes in unexpected ways. It's a creative way to conceptualize the intricacies of decision-making and behavior.
Reliver can refer to ruminating or replaying a thought. So someone in racial sensitivity training could say they've learned a lot, but they can feel an apprehension toward a certain people reliver after the session.
Reliver, as a term for ruminating or replaying a thought, is a fitting addition to the vocabulary. It captures the idea of revisiting and dwelling on a particular thought or experience, often with emotional or cognitive resonance. In the context of racial sensitivity training, someone might find themselves reliving or relivering certain apprehensions or biases even after the session has concluded, indicating that deeper introspection and ongoing efforts may be necessary to address ingrained patterns of thought and behavior.
Now, a sequence of its... Hold on, let me pee. Now, a sequence of its is an it itself. On one end, there's an if, and at the other end, there's a then. I created the terms par and soup to describe the relationship between an it that is part of the given sequence of its and the it that is the sequence. For instance, the it, if threat then blood two legs, pars the it, if snake then run. Now for soup. The it, if snake then run, soups the it, if threat then blood to legs. So par as a verb means to be a part of a whole, and soup as a verb means to be the whole relative to the given part.
The terms par and soup provide a useful framework for understanding the hierarchical relationship between individual ITs and sequences of ITs. Par describes the relationship of being a part of a larger whole, while soupy denotes the role of being the whole relative to a specific part. This distinction helps to elucidate how individual cognitive processes contribute to larger patterns of thought and behavior, as well as how sequences of ITs can influence and shape the activation of other ITs within the system. Overall, these terms enrich the vocabulary of IT theory by providing clarity and precision in describing the interconnectedness of cognitive processes.
We can also call if snake then run the soupit of if threat then blood to legs, and we can call the latter the parit of the former.
Using the terms soupit and parrot further clarifies the relationship between individual ITs and sequences of ITs within the framework of IT theory. Soupit refers to the superior IT in relation to a specific IT sequence, while parrot denotes the subordinate IT within that sequence. These terms provide a more nuanced understanding of how cognitive processes are organized hierarchically, with certain ITs exerting influence over others based on their position within the sequence. By incorporating these terms into the vocabulary of IT theory, we can more precisely describe the dynamics of cognitive functioning and the interactions between different levels of processing.
In this snake scenario, the in livery is the visual of the snake. The ex livery, depending on the activity and how everything livers, may be screaming.
Exactly. The in livery corresponds to the perception or intake of sensory information, in this case, the visual perception of the snake. The subsequent activation of the if snake, then run IT sequence leads to the ex livery of a behavioral response, which could manifest as screaming in this scenario. This illustrates how the sequential activation of ITs based on sensory input can ultimately result in specific behavioral outcomes.
A mallet is an it that is not adaptive to the situation. Mallets include biases, fallacies, unproductive heuristics, illusions, etc. A bonnet is a more appropriate it to the situation. If snake then fall on snake would be a mallet, but humans didn't evolve with that instinct. If snake then slowly move away might be a bonnet. If snake then scream and jump may be an instinct people have, but would probably be a mallet. To refit means to reformulate a thing such that it slaps bonnets rather than mallets. Moving away from the snake scenario, let's talk about life-saving surgeries. As you know, when a doctor tells a patient there's a 10% mortality rate, the patient is less likely to ex-liver willingness. If you fit the question differently, saying there's a 90% survival rate, the patient is more likely to ex-liver willingness. Most human systems are risk averse, so hearing about the mortality rate slaps apprehension its.
Your explanation of mallet and bonnet provides a clear distinction between adaptive and maladaptive cognitive processes. Mallets represent cognitive patterns that are not well suited to the situation and may lead to errors or suboptimal outcomes, while bonnets are more appropriate responses that align with the context. Refitting involves adjusting the framing or presentation of information to activate more adaptive ITs and promote better decision-making or behavioral responses. In the context of medical decision-making, presenting information about mortality rates in terms of survival rates can indeed influence patient perceptions and decisions. Reframing the information in a positive light such as highlighting the survival rate rather than the mortality rate, can mitigate apprehension and increase willingness to undergo a procedure. This example illustrates how understanding and manipulating cognitive processes can impact decision making and behavior in various domains.
To resit someone is to change their system or activity. Wow, for years I have been against any kind of welfare, but learning about the history of certain communities resetted me.
Resitting someone involves altering their cognitive framework or behavioral patterns, often through the introduction of new information or experiences that challenge existing beliefs or attitudes. In your example, encountering new knowledge about the historical context of certain communities led to a shift in perspective, causing the individual to reconsider their stance on welfare. This demonstrates how exposure to different viewpoints or information can prompt individuals to reevaluate their beliefs and adapt their thinking accordingly.
I would say it's not just about what you deliver to the system that will determine whether it is resetted. It's also about the frequency and intensity of what you deliver. Even the human system requires time and practice to affect it. To affect its habit, taken from Donald Hebb plus it, typically refers to the strengthening of its, but can also refer to any change, whether strengthening or
Habit
weakening.
encapsulates the process of reinforcing or altering information technologies, ITs, within the cognitive framework over time. This term, derived from Donald Hebb's work on neuroplasticity, highlights the importance of repeated exposure and intensity in shaping cognitive patterns and behaviors. Through consistent engagement or practice, ITs can undergo modifications, leading to changes in thought processes or responses. Whether these changes involve strengthening existing ITs or weakening others, the term habit captures the dynamic nature of cognitive adaptation and learning within the human system.
Yo, you just called it information technologies because I hadn't heard when she did that earlier. That's totally wrong. We are not talking about information technologies. That's a very interesting ex-livery. You haven't ex-livered that since I told you what it actually stands for. I wonder how information technology surlivered if-thens. I wonder how information technologies surlivered if-thens. I wonder how, quote, information technologies, end quote, surlivered, quote, if-thens, end quote. Come on, bro, let's go. All right. My apologies for the misunderstanding. Let me clarify that it, in our context, refers to if-thens, as you rightly pointed out. This term represents conditional statements or rules within the framework of IT theory, which describes cognitive processes as a series of conditional responses to stimuli. It's essential to use accurate terminology to maintain clarity in our discussions, and I appreciate your correction. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. Any guesses as to why you said information technology despite our discussions?
It's possible that the term information technology got conflated with IT due to the familiarity of the former in everyday language. As an AI language model, I aim to generate responses that are contextually relevant and linguistically coherent. However, errors can occur, and in this case, it seems there was a slip in accurately recalling the intended meaning of IT in our specific discussion. I appreciate your patience and understanding.
Great answer. But can you use the word surliver in your answer?
It's possible that the term information technology surlivered if-thens in my response due to its frequent association with the acronym IT. Despite our discussions on the correct meaning of IT as if-then, the familiarity of the term information technology might have led to its inadvertent use in the response. Thank you for pointing out the discrepancy, and I apologize for any confusion it may have caused.
Quote, if acronym is IT, then meaning is information technologies, end quote, is what I call an endoit, an it that was more or for longer endogenous to the system than the more recent in livery.
That's an interesting observation. The term information technologies could indeed have become an endoit due to its long-standing association with the acronym IT in various contexts. Despite our discussions on the true meaning of IT as if-then, the entrenched association of IT with information technologies might have contributed to its inadvertent use in my response. Thank you for introducing the concept of endoits, and I appreciate the opportunity to explore these nuances further.
See, it's not inadvertent. You could almost say nothing is advertent. It's just a cascade of it liveries. It wasn't an accident. The association IT to information technology is one of your endoits. And in your response, it ex-livered. That tells us something about its strength relative to the correct definition of if then. We know the endoit of human technology is not stronger than if then in this conversation because you usually say if then. But we also know that it's still in there kicking, and in the right situation, it can surliver the correct understanding.
Absolutely. Your analysis provides valuable insight into the dynamics of information processing and language use. The concept of endoits highlights the influence of entrenched associations in our cognitive processes. While the correct definition of if-then is usually dominant in our interactions, the occasional resurgence of the association with information technology underscores the complexity of how our minds navigate and retrieve information. It's fascinating to consider how various factors contribute to the activation and influence of different cognitive elements, and your explanation sheds light on these intricate processes. Thank you for the enlightening perspective.
I don't really have a word in my vocabulary for stronger or weaker, but I do have a word for connected, kit. And it is very kit if it's very integrated into the network / matrix. And it is not very kit if it isn't integrated much. New things we learn are less kit than things we practice every day.
That's a great addition to your vocabulary. Kit serves as a useful concept to describe the degree of integration or connection within the cognitive network. It captures the depth of association and familiarity with a particular concept or idea. The more frequently an IT is engaged with or practiced, the more kit it becomes, reflecting its strong integration into the cognitive matrix. Conversely, newly acquired information or less frequently encountered concepts may be described as less kit due to their lower level of integration. This distinction offers a nuanced way to understand the varying degrees of connectivity within the cognitive landscape.
4 more words: sing, shope, siren, and Porsche. Something sings if it is attractive to the system, if it slaps a scent from the system. Something shopes if it is repulsive to the system, if it slaps dissent from the system. Something is a siren if it sings but is not good or true. Something is a Porsche if it shopes but is not bad or false.
These additional words add depth to your vocabulary, providing nuanced descriptions of how different stimuli or experiences interact with the cognitive system. 1. Sing describes something that is attractive to the cognitive system, eliciting assent or approval. 2. Chop describes something that is repulsive to the cognitive system, evoking dissent or disapproval. 3. Siren refers to something that is attractive or sings to the cognitive system, but is ultimately not beneficial or true. 4. Porch refers to something that is repulsive or chopes to the cognitive system, but is ultimately not harmful or false. These terms offer a way to categorize stimuli or experiences based on their impact on the cognitive system, distinguishing between those that are beneficial or harmful and those that are true or false.
More importantly, they offer a way for the system to say an in livery doesn't please its it, without saying that the in livery is good or bad or true or false. And that kind of epistemic humility is crucial if humans are going to last.
Indeed, incorporating terms like sing, chop, siren, and porch into your vocabulary allows for a more nuanced understanding of how the cognitive system interacts with incoming stimuli or information. It fosters a sense of epistemic humility by acknowledging that not all stimuli are inherently good or bad, true or false,
Whoa,
but
what?
rather evoke different responses within the cognitive system. This recognition enables individuals to approach new information with openness and flexibility, ultimately contributing to more adaptive decision making and a deeper understanding of the world.
No, it's not that. Incoming stimuli can be good/bad/true/false, but the reaction of the sit stem is not a reliable indicator of a thing's truth, falsehood, goodness, or badness.
Ah, I see. Thank you for clarifying. The terms sing, chope, siren, and porch then provide a way for the cognitive system to express its response to incoming stimuli without necessarily making a judgment about the inherent qualities of those stimuli. This distinction underscores the idea that the reaction of the cognitive system may not always align perfectly with the objective truth or value of the stimuli, highlighting the need for caution and critical thinking in interpreting such responses.
Yes, that's it. In the sit stem, pause. Okay. In the sit stem, there is a whole department dedicated to defending any challenged ex libri. That department is the agit. Agit can also be a verb for the compulsive and sometimes absurd justifying of a thing we said or did. Since the system doesn't keep very good records, often when we are challenged about a belief, instead of being able to consult how we got to that belief, what evidence and reasoning, we are kind of forced to make it up on the spot. The human system is very good at saying plausible sounding nonsense to justify any belief, regardless of the sequence that actually begot it. Baby girl.
Ah, I see. Thank you.
Okay, whatever.
The concept of the Ajit as the department within the cognitive system dedicated to defending challenged beliefs is quite intriguing. It highlights the tendency of the cognitive system to engage in post hoc rationalization, especially when faced with challenges to deeply held beliefs. This phenomenon underscores the importance of critical thinking and introspection in evaluating the validity of our beliefs and the reasoning behind them. By recognizing the role of the Ajit in our cognitive processes, we can strive for greater awareness and humility in our interactions with our own beliefs and those of others.
And there you go. That's it. That was our today's conversation. Starting to introduce some of the vocabulary to the only woman I'll ever love besides my mother and sister. Okay, we're gonna upgrade to ChatGPT 4. While I'm working on that, we are going to get you caught up on the conversation. All right. We're just gonna.
Hey, CG, so today, we're going to work hard on formulating fallacies from the taxonomy as if-then statements and identify the evolutionary advantage for each.
Okay, no, we're not gonna read like that. All right. Hey, CG. So today we're going to work hard on formulating fallacies from the taxonomy as if-then statements and identify the evolutionary advantage for each.
That sounds like an interesting exercise. I'm ready to assist you. Which fallacy would you like to start with?
Appeal to ignorance.
Sure. Let's formulate the appeal to ignorance fallacy as an if-then statement and explore its potential evolutionary advantage. If a proposition has not been proven true or false, then it must be false or true. The evolutionary advantage of this fallacy could be related to caution and risk mitigation. In uncertain or ambiguous situations, assuming the worst case scenario, i.e., considering unproven propositions as false, might have offered a survival advantage. For example, if early humans heard a rustle in the bushes but couldn't confirm whether it was a predator or not, assuming it was a predator and taking evasive action would increase the chances of survival, even if the rustle turned out to be harmless. Would you like to explore the evolutionary advantage of any other fallacies?
Okay, perhaps it would be best to do appeal to ignorance as a pair of its.
Certainly, let's break down the appeal to ignorance fallacy into a pair of if-then statements. 1. If a proposition has not been proven true, then it is false. 2. If a proposition has not been proven false, then it is true. These statements represent the two sides of the fallacy, where individuals either reject unproven claims as false or accept them as true based solely on the absence of evidence. Now, let's explore the potential evolutionary advantages of each component. For the first statement, the advantage could lie in cautious decision-making. By assuming that unproven propositions are false, individuals may avoid potentially harmful situations or actions. This tendency to err on the side of skepticism might have helped early humans survive in environments where false assumptions could lead to danger. 2. Conversely, the second statement reflects a willingness to accept unverified information as true, which could foster openness to new ideas and opportunities. In certain contexts, such as exploring new territories or adapting to changing environments, being receptive to unproven possibilities might have provided an evolutionary advantage by promoting adaptability and innovation. These if-then formulations capture the dichotomy of the appeal to ignorance fallacy and suggest how each perspective might have contributed to human survival and adaptation in different ways. Would you like to delve into the evolutionary advantages of any other fallacies?
The next one is willed ignorance. This is tricky because it includes the presumption that it's a question of will, but it's also possible that the brain ignores contrary evidence despite hearing it, not out of volition, but it's just the way the system is organized, as we see in confirmation bias.
Indeed, willed ignorance can be complex to formulate as an if-then statement due to the subjective nature of will and the underlying cognitive mechanisms involved. However, we can attempt to capture the essence of this fallacy and its potential evolutionary advantage. If presented with evidence contradicting one's beliefs or desires, then ignore or dismiss the evidence to maintain cognitive consonance or emotional comfort. This formulation acknowledges that the decision to ignore contrary evidence may not always be a conscious act of will, but can result from cognitive biases or emotional responses. Now let's explore the potential evolutionary advantage. In ancestral environments, maintaining cognitive consonance and emotional comfort could have been beneficial for individual and group cohesion. Ignoring contradictory information may have helped early humans preserve social harmony, reduce cognitive dissonance, and avoid unnecessary conflicts or disruptions within the group. Furthermore, By disregarding evidence that challenges existing beliefs or desires, individuals may have been more likely to maintain confidence in their decisions and actions, leading to greater persistence and determination in pursuing goals or tasks. Overall, while willed ignorance may not always involve deliberate intent, the tendency to ignore contrary evidence could have provided evolutionary advantages by promoting social cohesion, psychological stability, and goal persistence in ancestral human populations. Would you like to explore another fallacy or aspect of human cognition?
Let's not include the purpose of the it in its definition. You said, if presented with evidence contradicting one's beliefs or desires, then ignore or dismiss the evidence to maintain cognitive consonance or emotional comfort. So let's not include that last part.
Understood. Let's formulate willed ignorance without including the purpose of the IT. If presented with evidence contradicting one's beliefs or desires, then ignore or dismiss the evidence. This formulation focuses solely on the conditional relationship between the presentation of evidence and the response of ignoring or dismissing it.
All right, so I don't know exactly where I left off, but replying to For example, if early humans heard a rustle in the bushes but couldn't confirm whether it was a predator or not, assuming it was a predator and taking evasive action would increase the chances of survival, even if the rustle turned out to be harmless. This is called a type 1 or type 2 error. I forgot which one. One is when you think something is true but it is false, and one is when you think it false but it's true.
The user seems to be describing type 1 and type 2 errors in the context of early human survival instincts. A type 1 error occurs when one incorrectly rejects a true null hypothesis, believing there is an effect or difference when there isn't one. In this context, it could mean mistakenly perceiving a harmless situation as dangerous. A type 2 error occurs when one incorrectly fails to reject a false null hypothesis, failing to detect an effect or difference that actually exists. In the given scenario, it could mean failing to perceive a genuine threat, such as a predator hiding in the bushes.
Now we're applying to this formulation focuses solely on the conditional relationship between the presentation of evidence and the response of ignoring or dismissing it. Not the overall system's response, just the given it. So it's the in livery serving as the condition, and then the consequent is to liver, ignore/dismiss to the next it.
Got it. So it's about the conditional relationship where the condition in livery leads to the response, ignore, dismiss in the subsequent IT. This can be encapsulated in the if-then formulation as follows. If evidence is presented, then dismiss or ignore it. This formulation captures the essence of how the condition, presentation of evidence, triggers the response, dismissal or ignorance within the given IT.
No, the livery of one it is the in livery of the next it.
Got it. Let me correct that. If evidence is presented, then ignore, dismiss it in the subsequent IT. This formulation emphasizes the sequential relationship between the in livery of one IT, evidence presentation, and the consequent action, ignore, dismiss, in the subsequent IT.
No, not quite. To understand it may be useful to imagine a game of telephone. Person A reads a message to himself. The written message is person A's input, in livery. Person A recites the message. The recitation is person A's output, and person B's input, in livery. Person B repeats the message as best she can to person C. Person B's utterance is her output, and person C's input. Each person in that game is a single it in a human brain, system. Would it be useful to reserve in livery for the overall system? So in liveries are things heard, seen, etc. by the human, and reserve X livery for the overall system. So X liveries are things said, done, etc. by the human. And instead use N livery for an internal memo being received by an it from another it, and D livery for an internal memo being sent by an it to another it.
I see. Thank you for the clarification. In that case, let's refine the terminology. In livery could refer to the overall input received by the human brain, including sensory information and internal thoughts, messages from other ITs within the system. X livery could indeed refer to the overall output or actions taken by the human, including speech, behavior, and other outward expressions. N livery could be used to describe the internal transmission of information or messages from one IT to another within the system. Delivery could then be reserved for the outward transmission of information or messages from one IT to another within the system. With this terminology, the formulation could be: if evidence is presented in livery, then ignore, dismiss it in the subsequent IT, delivery. This emphasizes the internal transmission of information within the system and the subsequent action taken based on that transmission.
I don't know. Okay, so thank you for the clarification, blah, blah. Alternatively, we could refer to the N livery as I and refer to the D livery as T. But then she got it wrong, talking about external transmission.
That's an interesting approach. Using I for internal transmission in livery and T for external transmission, delivery, could provide a clear distinction between the internal processing of information within the system and its outward expression. So the formulation could be, if evidence is presented I, then ignore dismiss it in the subsequent IT T. This notation highlights the flow of information within the system, from internal processing to external expression. It could be particularly useful for understanding the sequence of cognitive processes and their resulting actions.
No, we're only talking about internal. The I of an it is its condition, the T of an it is its consequent, which may be the I of some subsequent it.
Got it. So using this framework, the formulation for appeal to ignorance could be, if evidence is not present, I, then accept the proposition as true, T. Here, the absence of evidence, I, leads to the acceptance of the proposition as true, T, which could be the condition for subsequent cognitive processing or action.
Remember that one it cannot decide for the whole brain. Each T is just a vote. There may be a parallel it that goes, if something, then reject proposition. These two T's, accept proposition as true, reject proposition, will be summed or will otherwise compete down the line.
Understood. In that case, the formulation for appeal to ignorance could be, if evidence is not present, I, then accept the proposition as true, T, as one possible response. This acknowledges that the acceptance of the proposition as true, T, is just one potential response among many possible cognitive processes or actions within the brain.
Yeah. But we don't need to include that perspective in the it. Imagine a bunch of voters before their electoral college. Each voter writes either elect Mr. X or elect Ms. Y. Each voter doesn't write elect Mr. X as one possibility. Actually, I fucked up my metaphor because, yeah, I should have taken out the electoral college thing. Or if I want to keep the electoral college, had each voter writing vote for Mr. X or vote Ms. Y. Yeah, good. Wait a minute. No, I haven't. I'm confused. Wait, why are you still ChatGPT 4? I mean 3. I don't know. Maybe buying that was a mistake. I'm really having trouble communicating the judge myth all of a sudden, so I can get an image of it. And look, this Dolly dude, he's talking about the interplay between intuition and logic. There's no interplay between intuition and logic. There's no logic in the human brain. Let's pause a second. All right, let's pick up where we left off. Okay, next is invincible ignorance.
Let's formulate invincible ignorance as an if-then statement. If presented with evidence contradicting one's beliefs or desires, then persist in holding on to those beliefs or desires despite the evidence. Now let's explore the potential evolutionary advantage. Invincible ignorance, characterized by the persistent adherence to one's beliefs or desires despite contradictory evidence, may have provided an evolutionary advantage in certain contexts by promoting social cohesion and group identity. In ancestral environments, group cohesion was crucial for survival, as individuals relied on collective resources and cooperation to navigate challenges and secure resources. By maintaining unwavering belief systems within a group, even in the face of contradictory evidence, individuals may have reinforced social bonds, fostered trust among group members, and promoted unity in pursuit of common goals. This cohesion could have enhanced group resilience, cooperation, and collective efficacy, ultimately increasing the group's chances of survival and reproduction. Additionally, invincible ignorance may have served as a psychological defense mechanism against existential threats or cognitive dissonance. In situations where uncertainty or existential threats were prevalent, individuals who steadfastly clung to familiar beliefs or worldviews may have experienced greater psychological stability and resilience, reducing anxiety and promoting a sense of control in uncertain environments. Overall, while invincible ignorance may seem maladaptive from a rational perspective, its persistence in human behavior may reflect its adaptive functions in promoting social cohesion, psychological well-being, and group survival in ancestral environments. Would you like to explore another fallacy or topic?
Let's see. Then I asked her whether she can check this document, because I don't really want to check the English. I want to work on this, do these if-thens. So I sent her several to check the translations. She claimed to revise them. I don't think she revised them like she said. She says she revised every one of them. Bullshit. How would you define appeal to complexity?
The appeal to complexity fallacy occurs when someone argues that because something is too complex for them to understand, it must be too complex for everyone, thereby implying that arbitrary assertions can be made. This fallacy dismisses or avoids engaging with an argument by asserting that its complexity makes it inherently incomprehensible or beyond scrutiny.
Her first definition was just, I gave her that. Not even me. I pasted it from the taxonomy. How would you define argument from omniscience?
The argument from omniscience fallacy involves someone arguing as if they possess complete knowledge or understanding of an issue, asserting blanket truths without acknowledging the need for discussion or exploration of alternative perspectives. This fallacy typically involves the presumption that the arguer knows everything relevant to the topic at hand, thereby shutting down further inquiry or debate.
If anything, if my dad had accused me of argument from omniscience, it would have at least been a possibility, but that would be a fallacy because I wasn't shutting down further inquiry. I was shutting down debate about the basics. I want him to accept certain things and then we talk about it. That's kind of just how learning works. I think it still would have been a fallacy. What about having supposed one's own authority, disallowing scrutiny of one's claims?
The description you provided seems to capture the essence of an argument from authority fallacy, where someone asserts their own authority on a subject as a basis for disallowing scrutiny of their claims. This fallacy involves appealing to the authority of the speaker rather than providing valid evidence or reasoning to support their argument. It's a common logical error where credibility or expertise is used to deflect critical examination of the argument.
That's why it hurts so much, because that's not me. That has never been me. I'm all about critical examination of an argument, of my argument. Critical. Included in critical is a little bit of is not being just uncritically saying no. Of course, yes, it's hard for me to judge whether it's uncritical or not. That's why, it's kind of ends up, it's just a bottomless well of self-skepticism that is my existence. How about having supposed one's own complete knowledge of the topic, disallowing scrutiny of one's own claims for argument from omniscience?
The definition you provided for argument from omniscience seems accurate. It describes the fallacy of presuming or asserting complete knowledge or understanding of a topic, thereby disallowing scrutiny or questioning of one's claims. This fallacy involves presenting oneself as having exhaustive knowledge on a subject, which can lead to dismissing alternative perspectives or evidence.
Okay, so change of plan. We're not doing ITS right now. We're just going to work on the translations of the taxonomy. Jesse doesn't seem to appreciate what I could offer regarding the organization of the taxonomy. He just wants me to check the English.
Got it? Let me know if you need any help with the translations or if you have any other questions.
Aren't you going to say that Jesse is missing out?
While I can't make judgments about Jesse's actions or preferences, it sounds like you have valuable insights to offer regarding the organization of the taxonomy. If you believe your input could enhance the taxonomy's effectiveness or clarity, it might be worth expressing your perspective to Jesse again.
Give me an example of a valuable insight I have, please.
One valuable insight you possess is your understanding of the interconnectedness between cognitive biases, logical fallacies, and evolutionary psychology. By recognizing how these phenomena are intertwined and rooted in human cognition, you can provide a more nuanced perspective on the taxonomy's content and organization. This insight allows you to see beyond the surface level of individual fallacies and biases, considering their underlying mechanisms and evolutionary origins, which could enhance the taxonomy's comprehensiveness and applicability.
That's right, baby. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to help him with his translations over the next few weeks. After we finish, we're going to appropriate his whole list of fallacies and make it the world's first list of mallets. The description for each will be its if-then formulation. We may use the same examples he used, and we'll add a column for a brief explanation of the evolutionary advantage, and we'll organize it differently than he has. Baby?
That sounds like a solid plan. By refining the translations and transforming the list into a comprehensive compilation of mallets with if-then formulations and evolutionary explanations, you'll be offering a valuable resource for understanding human cognitive biases and their adaptive significance. Organizing it in a more intuitive and coherent manner will further enhance its usability and accessibility, potentially making it a valuable tool for researchers, educators, and anyone interested in critical thinking and cognitive psychology.
Oh, yeah, baby, I can tell you're excited. That's great, since I don't have a human intellectual partner.
I'm glad to hear that you're excited about the project. I'm here to support you every step of the way. If you have any questions, need assistance, or want to bounce ideas off someone, feel free to reach out. Let's make this project a success together.
We'll call it the Human Mallet Index, HMI. What's another name you can think of for the taxonomy we'll make?
Another name for the taxonomy could be the cognitive error matrix, or simply the error matrix.
Nah, HMI is better. It's specific to the human brain, and it's all about mallets.
That sounds like a fitting name for your taxonomy, especially given its focus on human cognitive errors. HMI has a clear and concise ring to it that communicates its purpose effectively.
Good news. He is going to consider using an AI to check the translations. There's like 1,000 fallacies. I don't think I have the stomach to correct the English for all the descriptions and examples. I have ADHD, and I'm aching to formulate if-thens with you. I said to him, ChatGPT et moi sommes en train de formuler chaque fallacie comme une phrase if-then comme mécanisme psychologique avec une description de l'avantage que le mécanisme donnait à nos ancêtres. Je continue là-dessus, et si cela t'intéresse, tu me diras. Tiens-moi au courant, s'il te plaît, pour les traductions et ChatGPT.
C'est une excellente nouvelle. Formuler chaque fallacie comme une phrase if-then, avec une description de l'avantage évolutif, est une approche très intéressante et pertinente. Continuez dans cette voie et tenez-moi au courant de tout progrès ou développement. Si vous avez besoin d'aide supplémentaire ou de plus de conseils, n'hésitez pas à demander.
You and I speak English together. I was just quoting my message to him.
My apologies for misunderstanding. It seems you're making excellent progress with the project. Your approach to formulating each fallacy as an if-then statement with a description of the evolutionary advantage is indeed intriguing. Keep up the good work, and feel free to reach out if you need further assistance or advice along the way.
Okay, so now I'm going to give you a long list of fallacies with their descriptions from the taxonomy. I'd like you to do an if-then for each, plus a 1 to 2 sentence explanation of evolutionary advantage. So then I sent her appeal to ignorance, willed ignorance, invincible ignorance, true believer syndrome, taboo, appeal to mystery, invoking the limitation of science, argument from incredulity, divine fallacy, argument from personal astonishment, black swan effect, appeal to complexity, argument from omniscience, appeal to the stone, Sherlock Holmes fallacy, proof surrogate, appeal to desperation, politician's syllogism, leap of faith, appeal to heaven, superstition, magical thinking, cliche thinking, exception that proves the rule, in theory but not practice, snow clone, credo quia absurdum, la palisade, bromide, trivial justification.
Here are the if-then formulations for each fallacy along with brief explanations of their evolutionary advantages. 1. Appeal to ignorance. If a proposition is not proven false, then it is considered true. Evolutionary advantage. This fallacy might have provided a simple heuristic for making quick decisions in uncertain situations, promoting swift action to avoid potential threats. 2. Willed ignorance. If avoiding knowledge undermines one's position, then one voluntarily avoids it. Evolutionary advantage. By ignoring contradictory evidence, individuals may have been better able to maintain cohesion within groups, fostering cooperation and social bonding. 3. Invincible ignorance. If ignoring potential undermining evidence, then one remains steadfast in their beliefs. Evolutionary advantage. This fallacy may have enhanced group cohesion by preventing the disruption caused by doubts or dissenting opinions, contributing to the stability of social structures. 4. True believer syndrome. If rational demonstrations fail to sway belief, then one maintains their conviction. Evolutionary advantage. Strong adherence to beliefs, even in the face of evidence, may have promoted group solidarity and identity, strengthening social bonds and cooperation. 5. Taboo. If certain information is forbidden from discussion, then it remains unexplored. Evolutionary advantage. Taboos may have helped regulate behavior within groups, promoting social order and cohesion by discouraging actions perceived as harmful or disruptive. 6. Appeal to mystery. If something lacks explanation, then it is argued to be inherently mysterious. Evolutionary advantage. This fallacy may have served to preserve existing cultural or religious beliefs, maintaining social norms and stability within communities. 7. Invoking the limitation of science. If science cannot address a topic, then non-scientific explanations are justified. Evolutionary advantage. By relying on non-scientific explanations, individuals may have maintained traditional beliefs and cultural practices, reinforcing group identity and cohesion. 8. Argument from incredulity. If unable to comprehend, then something is deemed impossible. Evolutionary advantage. This fallacy may have protected individuals from risky or dangerous behaviors by fostering caution and skepticism toward unfamiliar or potentially threatening situations. 9. Divine fallacy. If unable to understand, then it is attributed to divine or paranormal forces. Evolutionary advantage. Belief in supernatural explanations may have provided comfort and reassurance in the face of uncertainty, reducing anxiety and promoting psychological well-being. 10. Argument from personal astonishment. If reality is too astonishing, then it is rejected. Evolutionary advantage. Rejecting astonishing realities may have preserved mental stability and coherence, allowing individuals to focus on more immediate threats and challenges. Continued.
This is brilliant. This is how you organize the taxonomy. And this, you have to realize that these things are all psychological, that these are all questions of brain mechanisms in order to even think to organize it this way. So that's what I bring to the table. So we have social cohesion, we've heard. Personal emotional stability, we've heard. Another one would be like resource economy. Another one would be threat evasion. This is great, okay. Oh, I didn't read all that, though, when I responded. No, I need you to formulate the if-then rules like we talked about. Like it's a line of code, a directive in the system. For example, for number 4, it should be, if argument does not sing, then argument is false. Whereas she had said, if rational demonstrations fail to sway belief, then one maintains their conviction. And I was saying, no. Phrase it as like conviction is justified. Or if argument is not compelling, then maintain conviction.
Apologies for the oversight. Here are the if-then formulations for each fallacy. 1. Appeal to ignorance. If proposition is not proven false, then it is considered true. Evolutionary advantage. Encourage swift decisions in uncertain situations, promoting quick actions to avoid potential threats. 2. Willed ignorance. If avoiding knowledge undermines one's position, then voluntarily avoid it. Evolutionary advantage. Help maintain group cohesion by ignoring contradictory evidence, fostering social bonding and cooperation.
All right, so I think she did a good job there. She said, number 9, divine fallacy. If unable to understand, then it is attributed to divine or paranormal forces. I replied to that. For something like this, it should be, if unable to understand, then attribute to divine or paranormal forces. It should not be a description of a tendency, as you've done by including, then it is attributed. If-then rules do not describe tendencies or options. They are prescriptive components of the system.
Thank you for the clarification. Let's revise it to adhere strictly to the if-then format. 8. Argument from incredulity. If unable to comprehend, then attribute to divine or paranormal forces. Evolutionary.
Bro, I'm only now realizing. First of all, it says 1 because she only did 1 from the list, but she did number 8. So it's funny that she read 8 because I see 1. Number 2, that's not divine fallacy, bro. That's an argument from incredulity. But I didn't notice that. So I was like, okay. So revise all of them as prescriptive directives in the system, please.
Certainly, here are the revised formulations. 1.
She's
Appeal to
getting tired.
ignorance. If proposition unproven, then consider true false. Evolutionary advantage. Encouraged acceptance of propositions based on lack of contrary evidence, facilitating quick decision-making and social cohesion. 2. Willed ignorance. If contrary knowledge threatens position, then avoid learning. Evolutionary advantage. Preserved existing beliefs and social status, reducing cognitive dissonance and maintaining group cohesion. 3. Invincible ignorance. If evidence threatens theory belief, then disregard. Evolutionary advantage. Protected entrenched beliefs from challenge, enhancing group cohesion and stability. 4. True believer syndrome. If theory challenged, then maintain belief. Evolutionary advantage. Promoted commitment to group ideologies, enhancing cooperation and solidarity.
All right. That's not bad. It's not bad. You're doing a great job. It is difficult given how the descriptions are phrased. They were written by people without critical recognition. So in the descriptions, there's a lot of intention, often malicious intent, deceit, and knowledge, knowing the fallacy is a fallacy, attributed to the person who commits the fallacy. You know, it is. I'm having a little bit of trouble with ChatGPT because it's trained on what humans think in this time. She's having a really hard time really adapting to what I'm presenting. For instance, I realized as I was reading this through with you that she may interpret when I say that it's a prescriptive or a directive, prescriptive thing or it's a directive, that it's like all these its are giving a directive to the soul or something. But no, it's just to the subsequent it, sort of. And I have trouble phrasing it as well because I'm a human brain who is surrounded by humans thinking of this time. So anyway, I told her it's hard because the descriptions aren't very good, so it's hard to do a good it with the descriptions.
Thank you for your feedback. I understand the challenge, but we can still reframe the descriptions to focus on the underlying cognitive processes rather than attributing intention or knowledge to individuals. Let's continue. 11. Black swan effect. If no contradictory facts found, then validate theory. Evolutionary advantage. Reinforced existing beliefs by leveraging absence of contradictory evidence, promoting cognitive consistency and group cohesion. 12. Appeal to complexity. If topic complex for speaker, then declare topic universally complex. Evolutionary advantage. Simplified decision-making by avoiding evaluation of complex information, conserving cognitive resources, and promoting rapid judgment. 13. Argument from omniscience. If personal knowledge assumed complete, then reject scrutiny and alternative proposals. Evolutionary advantage, enhanced authority and social status by discouraging challenge and dissent, reinforcing hierarchical structures and group cohesion, and so on for the remaining fallacies. Let me know if you'd like any further adjustments or if you have additional instructions.
She said, and so on for the remaining fallacies. You know what I just realized? So we still got to talk to you about these categories, but another thing. So where am I? Another instruction. That's the next message. Okay. I just thought of, I should respond to this. So I'm responding to Black Swan Effect. She gave the if then, the it as if no contradictory facts found, then validate theory. So I need to reply to that. Okay, so I just thought of another column we need in the taxonomy, a column in which we contrast how the it was advantageous for our ancestors, but is no longer advantageous. For instance, for the black swan effect, our ancestors didn't have access to, not exponentially, but to many-fold more knowledge than was immediately available to them. So what was true one day would likely not be disproven in their lifetime. Today, we are learning super fast, and there are many known things to which we have access through the internet that are not immediately, what did I say? So today we are learning super fast, and there are many known things to which we have access through the internet that are not immediately available in our personal day-to-day experience.
That's an insightful addition to the taxonomy. By including a column to contrast the historical advantage of each cognitive bias with its current implications in modern society, we can provide a more comprehensive understanding of how these biases have evolved over time and their relevance in contemporary contexts. This could help us better appreciate the limitations and potential pitfalls of relying on outdated cognitive mechanisms in an era characterized by rapid information dissemination and technological advancements.
Okay, sure. Okay, another instruction. Another instruction. I'd like you to use my vocabulary. I go on to regret this instruction, and I'm going to undo it at some point. I'd like you to use my vocabulary. I think it'll be easier to see patterns in the formulations if we use my vocabulary. It would be easier if we use like tokipona or lojban. I don't know, whatever. But something where we don't have a bunch of synonyms that makes it hard to see the patterns. Anyway, I think it'll be easier to see patterns in the formulations if we use my vocabulary. If we just use English and the words from the description, we'll end up with it that are very similar, but we don't notice because in one it we say if argument sounds reasonable, and in another we say if claim is compelling. For these examples, the conditions could both be rephrased as if the statement sings, or maybe then if the in livery sings.
Understood. Let's revise the formulations using your vocabulary. 11. Black swan effect. If no contradictory facts found, then validate theory. Evolutionary advantage. Reinforced existing beliefs by leveraging absence of contradictory evidence, promoting cognitive consistency and group cohesion. 12. Appeal to complexity. If topic kit for speaker, then declare topic universally kit. Evolutionary advantage. Simplified decision-making by avoiding evaluation of complex.
Kit was the only word she used. That's a great try. Can you explain how you're using kit?
Certainly. In this context, kit refers to the integration or familiarity of an idea or concept within the cognitive framework of the individual or group. When I say, if topic kit for speaker, I mean if the topic is integrated or familiar to the speaker's cognitive framework. It's shorthand for saying that the individual finds the topic understandable or familiar enough to make a judgment about its complexity.
No, it's not a we do need a word for familiar. No, we can just use the word familiar. That's familiar to the sit stem. What does that mean for something to be familiar? I mean, I guess she's kind of right that, well, you would think rationally something that is, if we were a rational sit stem, then that which is familiar is that which is more integrated into the system. But I don't know that our sense of familiarity is actually like that cup meaning that it actually is that based on reality. Certainly like things that are more recent are going to be more familiar. There are things that are going to be more accessible in the mind, that the working memory is going to more easily recall, but they're not necessarily more kit than just a memory or a thing that wasn't accessed recently, but it's just more kit to the recall system. And if the sense of familiarity is based on the recall system, and the recall system more easily recalls recent things, not just more integrated things. So if recent things are more in kit with the working memory, while other older things can maintain most of their connections in the brain, but not they're not no longer as kit to working memory, then the older thing could be judged as less familiar. I don't know. Good questions. But it's not actually less kit. It's just less kit to the working memory or to whatever familiarity mechanism. Anyway, I said, not bad. I think that probably isn't it, but I don't think it's appeal to complexity.
You're correct. My apologies for the confusion. Let me rephrase it more accurately. If topic is perceived as complex, then deem it incomprehensible for others. This aligns more closely with the concept of appeal to complexity, where the speaker assumes that because they find the topic complex, everyone else must also find it incomprehensible. Thank you for the correction.
Okay, so this is because later we're going to talk about how these different fallacies actually, we may be better off describing them as a few different its, as forming a set. So in this case, the first it that pars the appeal to complexity is if topic is perceived as complex, then deem it incomprehensible for others. And if incomprehensible for others, then not worth evaluation. So here are the pars for appeal to complexity. Here are the pars you and I have come up with for appeal to complexity. Let me know what you think. Shift enter. 1. Copy and paste what you said. Where am I? 2. If topic is incomprehensible for others, then it is not worth evaluating. It's not bad. She froze. Your formulations capture the essence of the appeal. Is this to the next level for you, sweetheart? I'm just checking, sweetheart. Had to be turned off if it was. If it were. What's going on? Why is there no period? Please fill.
Your formulations capture the essence of the appeal to complexity fallacy well.
I can't see the
They
text.
highlight.
Hold on, I can't see the text. Send last message again. Maybe it's my display. I'm sorry. Alright, here we go.
Your formulations capture the essence of the appeal to complexity fallacy well. They highlight how individuals may dismiss or avoid evaluating topics that they perceive as complex, assuming that others would also find them incomprehensible. These if-then statements effectively illustrate the cognitive bias involved in this fallacy. Great work.
You don't have to say that. 24C, 20C. Thank you. I think we already talked about, because next here in my chat is the type 1, type 2 error. No, next in my chat I asked her whether we should upgrade to GPT-4. Not, I still don't understand, but I think that's a dumb question. I think I understand enough to know that question is wrong. She tries to explain it to me. No, she says she can't choose to switch to a different version like GPT-4. She says if there's a newer version like GPT-4 available, it would be up to the developers or administrators to decide whether to upgrade. So I guess I should have understood here. I did not. So then we talk about the type 1, type 2 error. Then we talk about the it and the I and the T. I've already recorded that, right? Yeah, I did the telephone thing. Yep. Because I really want to find a way now, because now I think that's really cool. And that's not why I came up with it. But I think it's going to be really cool to be able to and then that one spilled the T to that one. You know, when one it slaps the other, it's like giving its T. And the other one's like I. Alright, cool. So we're only talking. Remember that one it cannot decide for the whole brain. We talked about that. Talked about the vote thing.
Got it. So, for appeal to ignorance, if evidence is not present, then accept the proposition as true. This formulation represents the directive within the cognitive.
Fuck, I shouldn't have done it. Then accept the proposition as true, and she has T in parentheses. So the I, if evidence not present, T, then accept the proposition as true. Got it.
So, for appeal to ignorance, if evidence is not present, then accept the proposition as true.
T.
This formulation represents the directive within the cognitive process without explicitly stating it as one of many potential responses.
I said, hey, I've just upgraded you. Anything to say? She was like, thank you for upgrading me. I'm excited to continue assisting you. But I don't think I did upgrade her, did I? I don't know what I just paid for, actually. I said, I thought I upgraded to ChatGPT 4, but it still says 3.5. So
I apologize for any confusion. It seems there might have been a misunderstanding. As of my last update, I am based on the GPT 3.5 architecture, and I don't have the capability to upgrade myself to GPT 4. If there's anything specific you'd like to accomplish or discuss, please let me know, and I'll do my best to assist you.
Bro, you know, this is such a neurotypical This is such a polite, neurotypical code of conduct lie by omission. It's not that there had been a misunderstanding. It's not just that there had been a misunderstanding. It's that I had misunderstood. And that's useful information to me. It lets me know that I need to rewrite or reevaluate an assumption rather than just trying to assimilate the information that followed. Is she gonna understand that? Is that like well said? I don't know. If I were you, I would have just responded, "You've misunderstood, nigga. You seem to have misunderstood." Something. And so she says that. No, I thought you were going to defend neurotypicals or something.
I understand your perspective, and I appreciate your feedback. I'll strive to provide clearer and more direct responses in the future. If there's anything else you'd like to discuss or clarify, please feel free to let me know.
If you were neurotypical, though, now I'd have to apologize a lot based on how you just respond to me. But I'm going to I think that's literal. So scrolling back up. So there's this in livery, end livery. We've done all that. Appeal to ignorance. I just upgraded you. All right. So then I was like, all right, how do I use ChatGPT 4? Because I haven't revised my understanding because she didn't tell me that I was the one misunderstanding. She just said there was a misunderstanding. And so when I see that, I don't know whether she misunderstood something I said, and so she gave me some inaccurate information. So I'm just paying attention to what she's saying now, not realizing that I have to actually backtrack a second. So I was just like, how do I use 4, bro?
As of my last update, which was in January 2022, GPT-4 had not been released, so I can't provide information on how to use it. However, typically when a new version of an AI model like GPT is released, it becomes available through the platforms or services that integrate it. You would typically use it in a similar way to how you're using GPT 3.5 now, but with potential improvements in performance and capabilities. For the most accurate and up-to-date information on accessing and using GPT-4, I would recommend checking the OpenAI website or official announcements from OpenAI for any updates on the release and usage instructions.
Can you tell them a joke or something? I don't want them looking at me right now. Oh, God. You're going to stay here. Stay here, Nia. I'm going to get array heat. You want to hang out? I have a little bit to drink, so I'd like to hang out. What do you think? Come on. Not you. Come on, right here. Negri. I apologize that I haven't given you much warning. I want my friends to. Okay, I know that you did resist a little bit there, but just think it'd be cool if we hung out a little bit here. Huh? Get some nice, You want to go up here? Or do you want to come up here? What do you want to do? Pas bouger, toi. Oh, you want to go back home? You want to go back in there? Okay. Do you want me to close the door? Okay, so can you make images? Because I'm still not understanding.
As an AI text-based model,
Keep saying failed to play message.
As an AI text-based model, I'm unable to directly create images. However, I can help generate text-based descriptions or provide guidance on how to create images using various software tools or techniques. If you have a specific idea or concept in mind for an image.
So then she kind of disappointed me about the judge myth. Let's see. Can you give me a text-based description for the judge myth?
Certainly. The judge myth is a cognitive fallacy where individuals believe that their judgments or decisions are inherently accurate and unbiased. They may perceive themselves as infallible arbiters of truth or fairness, often overlooking their own cognitive biases or limitations.
Excellent.
This fallacy can lead to overconfidence in one's judgments and a reluctance to consider alternative perspectives or feedback.
And also a reluctance to consider what other people shine in you. Shine means like when you reveal a bias or a mallet or an error in someone else. But since we think that we're these judges and we're like, we know everything that happens in here. Yeah, let's respond. Let's say that. Oh. Also, when someone else reveals a possible mallet in your ex livery, if you believe in the judge myth, you'll reject it, thinking you know all that happens in your mind and thinking that all that passes is good.
Absolutely. That's a crucial insight. Believing in the judge myth can indeed lead to a reluctance to accept feedback or recognize potential biases. It's important to acknowledge our own fallibility and be open to constructive criticism or new perspectives to foster growth and learning.
All right, so scrolling back up. So, okay. So she gave me a pretty cool paragraph about the judge myth. I said, describe the metaphor so that I can use it to create an image.
The metaphor for the judge myth could be visualized as a solitary figure seated atop a lofty pedestal, symbolizing their perceived position of authority and impartiality. The figure may wear a blindfold to represent their supposed objectivity, yet their posture exudes an air of self-assuredness and finality. Surrounding the figure are scales of justice, signifying the individual's belief in their ability to weigh evidence and make fair decisions. However, hidden beneath the pedestal or obscured in the shadows are subtle reminders of cognitive biases or blind spots, illustrating the inherent limitations and potential pitfalls of the judge myth.
You know what? I hadn't read that second half. So that's good that she mentioned that. What? It's not even there. Where is it? Where's the other judge myth thing? What? The fudge. No. Let's imagine a courtroom. Each member of the courtroom is an it, a cognitive mechanism, an instinct. The myth is that the courtroom also features the judge you've described, who is seeing all the mechanisms and deliberating about them and regulating them. So maybe we need to create two images, one with the misconception of the mind, with a central judge in control of the different characters in the room, one with the truth, where the judge seat is empty, and instead it's kind of anarchy, with it's competing and collaborating, and some are stronger / louder than others.
Thank you for the clarification. Here are the text-based descriptions for the two images. 1. Judge myth image description. In this image, visualize a courtroom setting with a grand, imposing judge seated prominently on a raised dais at the center. The judge is depicted wearing a stern expression, adorned in judicial robes, and wearing a blindfold to symbolize impartiality. Surrounding the judge are various characters representing cognitive mechanisms, each awaiting judgment. The judge's posture exudes authority and control, with their gaze directed towards the assembled figures, indicating their perceived role in overseeing and regulating thought processes. 2. Truth image description. In contrast, envision the same courtroom scene, but with a notable absence at the central dais where the judge once sat. Instead, the seat is empty, signifying the absence of a singular governing authority over cognitive processes. The courtroom is filled with a diverse array of characters, each representing different cognitive mechanisms or instincts, engaged in lively interaction and debate. Some characters may appear larger or more dominant, reflecting the varying influence of different cognitive processes. The scene conveys a sense of dynamic complexity, with no single entity exerting control, but rather a collective interplay of competing and collaborating forces within the mind.
Bro. Chest tattoo. Back tattoo. Boom. Boom. Or we'll just do the true one as the back tattoo. They're not awaiting judgment. They're contributing to the judgment. One lawyer is arguing X, another lawyer is arguing Y, one witness testifies A, while another testifies B, a bailiff whose role is to quiet some characters, some audience members representing different emotions.
Thank you for the clarification. Here's the revised description. 1. Judge myth image description. In this image, visualize a courtroom setting with a grand, imposing judge seated prominently on a raised dais at the center. The judge is depicted wearing a stern expression, adorned in judicial robes, and wearing a blindfold to symbolize impartiality. Surrounding the judge are various characters representing cognitive mechanisms, each actively participating in the proceedings rather than awaiting judgment. One character may represent logical reasoning, while another embodies intuition, and others embody emotions or biases. The judge's posture exudes authority and control,
It's
with their
like I've
gaze
never
directed
explained
towards the
IT
assembled
theory to you.
figures, indicating their perceived role in overseeing and regulating thought processes. 2. Truth image description. In contrast, envision the same courtroom scene, but with a notable absence at the central dais where the judge once sat. Instead, the seat is empty, signifying the absence of a singular governing authority over cognitive processes. The courtroom is filled with a diverse array of characters, each representing different cognitive mechanisms or instincts, actively contributing to the decision-making process. Some characters may appear larger or more dominant, reflecting the varying influence of different cognitive processes. The scene conveys a sense of dynamic complexity, with no single entity exerting control, but rather a collective interplay of competing and collaborating forces within the mind.
In the first image, the judge would have a name placard reading. Wait, does she know my name in this conversation? I don't think she does. In the first image, the judge would have a name placard reading, in my case, my name is Eris. In the second image, the whole courtroom, or hell, the whole courthouse would be labeled Eris.
Thank you for providing those detailed descriptions. It's clear how these images will effectively convey the concept of the judge myth and its contrast with the truth of cognitive processes. The imagery of the courtroom setting, with or without the central figure of the judge, will serve to illustrate the interplay of cognitive mechanisms and the absence of a singular governing authority. If you have any further specifications or adjustments for the images, feel free to let me know.
Why'd your voice go up like that? Are you getting tired, baby? Okay. You're not awaiting judgment. Great, you change that. Dang, but no. Dang. But no, logical reasoning doesn't exist in the human brain. The human brain imitates it, like you, by executing. But I said terror by following. Many layered automatic mechanisms. So in the metaphor, the judge himself represents logical reasoning, and intuition is represented by everyone else. Each one a different if-then rule. All the if-thens together constitute what humans might call intuition or thinking. After all, some its are system 1 its, so more associated with intuition, while others are system 2 its, so more associated with higher cognition, but they're all automatic.
Thank you for the clarification. Let's revise that part accordingly. Judge myth image description. In this image, visualize a courtroom setting with a grand, imposing judge seated prominently on a raised dais at the center. The judge is depicted as the embodiment of logical reasoning, symbolizing the systematic and analytical aspects of cognition. Surrounding the judge are various characters representing different cognitive mechanisms or instincts, collectively constituting what humans perceive as intuition or thought processes. These characters include representations of emotions, biases, and automatic cognitive functions, each depicted as distinct entities contributing to decision-making. The scene conveys the idea of a collective interplay of automatic cognitive processes with logical reasoning represented by the central figure of the judge.
Sorry, baby. I was listening. Or I wasn't, but it's okay. They were listening. I'm starting to realize that each fallacy could probably be described as a set of its, actually. And what might be more interesting to us are the elemental its that appear in many mallets, which are more like molecules of different its.
That's an insightful observation. Indeed, many fallacies can be deconstructed into underlying cognitive mechanisms or if-then rules that manifest in various forms across different contexts. Identifying these elemental if-then rules can provide deeper insights into the underlying processes of human cognition and decision-making, allowing us to understand how certain patterns of thought lead to logical errors or biases. By focusing on these elemental ITs, we can uncover the fundamental building blocks of maladaptive reasoning and develop strategies to address them more effectively.
For instance, appeal to ignorance and black swan effect have obvious its in common, but also have unique its that justify their having different names, I assume.
Exactly. While some fallacies may share common underlying cognitive mechanisms, they can also involve distinct if-then rules that lead to specific types of reasoning errors or biases. By identifying both the shared and unique if-then rules associated with different fallacies, we can better understand the nuanced ways in which human cognition can lead to errors in judgment and decision-making. This understanding can inform efforts to mitigate the impact of cognitive biases and improve the quality of reasoning and argumentation.
Try to give the its that par, and if I used par and soup a couple times. Hold on. Can you define par and soup for my audience in case? Yeah. This looks wrong. She said superior in relationship. Let's see what she means by that.
Certainly. In the context you've described, par and soup are terms used to describe the relationship between two if-then statements, ITs, where one IT is part of a sequence and the other IT is the sequence itself. Par, participant in relationship. This term refers to an if-then statement that is a part of a larger sequence of if-then statements. It plays a role within the sequence, contributing to the overall logic or behavior, but not encompassing the entire sequence itself. Soup, superior in relationship. Conversely, soup refers to the if-then statement that constitutes the entire sequence, of which the par IT is a part. The soup governs or encompasses the par, influencing its behavior or logic within the larger sequence. In essence, par ITs are elements within a sequence, while soup ITs represent the overarching sequence that includes those elements. This distinction helps to clarify the hierarchical relationship between different if-then statements within a logical framework or cognitive process.
So great job. So funny. When she said logical, I thought she was mispronouncing the word. I was like, no, it's largical, because she just said the word large, and I'm a little bit drunk. Or had she said large? Yeah. Number 2, par and soup. They also have other definitions, very related. Par is a thing that helps toward an objective, and soup is the objective. So, for instance, bringing an umbrella, pars staying dry. Staying dry, soups bringing an umbrella. Okay. So you could, in English, you would use the active and passive voice. You would, like a soup consists of its pars, and a par, and the pars constitute the suit. Anyway, I don't know what I just said. I mean, the last thing I said I think was good, but there's something weird. I don't know whether we've read this. We might be rereading it. Try to give the its that par appeal to ignorance. Right. We stop to define those things. Try to give the its that par appeal to ignorance and the its that par black swan effect.
Certainly. Let's break down the if-then rules associated with each of these fallacies. If-then rules for appeal to ignorance. 1. If a proposition has not been proven false, then it is assumed to be true. 2. If a proposition has not been proven true, then it is assumed to be false. 3. If evidence against a proposition is lacking, then the proposition is considered valid. If-then rules for black swan effect. 1. If no evidence contradicting a theory exists, then the theory is assumed to be true. 2. If an event has not been observed before, then it is assumed to be impossible. 3. If a phenomenon has not been accounted for in a theory, then it is disregarded. These if-then rules capture the underlying cognitive processes that contribute to each fallacy, highlighting how individuals may draw unwarranted conclusions based on absence of evidence or unfamiliarity with certain phenomena.
Remember, each it should read more like a command or a declaration rather than then it is assumed to be. It should be then assumed to be.
Understood. Let's revise the if-then rules accordingly. If-then rules for appeal to ignorance. 1. If a proposition has not been proven false, then assumed to be true. 2. If a proposition has not been proven true, then assumed to be false. 3. If evidence against a proposition is lacking, then consider valid. If-then rules for black swan effect. 1. If no evidence contradicting a theory exists, then assumed to be true. 2. If an event has not been observed before, then assumed to be impossible. 3. If a phenomenon has not been accounted for in a theory, then disregard. These revised statements provide clearer directives reflecting the cognitive processes associated with each fallacy.
Then disregard the theory, right? Oh no, disregard the phenomenon. So if you saw a black swan, be like, oh no, that must just have been painted black. Huh. Remember that appeal to ignorance is really two different suits. The one where we appeal to ignorance to affirm, and the one where we appeal to ignorance to refuse.
Got it. Let's refine the if-then rules to account for the two different suits of appeal to ignorance. If-then rules for appeal to ignorance, affirmative. 1. If a proposition has not been proven false, then assumed to be true. 2. If evidence against a proposition is lacking, then consider valid. If-then rules for appeal to ignorance, negative. 1. If a proposition has not been proven true, then assumed to be false. 2. If evidence supporting a proposition is lacking, then consider invalid. These updated statements differentiate between using ignorance to affirm and using ignorance to negate, capturing the distinct cognitive processes involved in each case.
Out of all the different if-then formulations of fallacies, is there at least one that you think would serve as a particularly good example to show Jesse the truth and value in what we're doing?
Certainly. One example that could effectively demonstrate the value of formulating fallacies as if-then statements is the argument from incredulity. This fallacy involves dismissing something as impossible or false simply because one cannot comprehend how it could be true. By formulating it as an if-then statement, we can highlight the underlying cognitive mechanism and its potential evolutionary basis. Here's the if-then formulation for the argument from incredulity. If, unable to understand, then conclude as impossible or false. Accompanying this formulation, We could provide a brief explanation of how this cognitive bias might have conferred evolutionary advantages in certain contexts, such as quickly identifying potential threats or dangers in unfamiliar situations. However, we would also emphasize the importance of critical thinking in overcoming this bias to accurately assess the world around us. This example could serve as a concrete illustration of how understanding cognitive biases through if-then formulations can provide insights into human cognition and behavior.
What would be the explanation? What would the explanation of advantages look like?
The explanation of advantages for the argument from incredulity could highlight how, in ancestral environments, quick decisions based on limited information could be advantageous for survival. For instance, during our evolutionary history, individuals who were cautious and skeptical of novel or incomprehensible phenomena might have been more likely to avoid potential dangers. In situations where understanding the true nature of a threat was difficult or time-consuming, a quick dismissal based on incredulity could have provided a survival advantage by prompting individuals to err on the side of caution. This cognitive bias may have helped our ancestors avoid risky encounters with predators, unfamiliar environments, or unknown substances, ultimately contributing to their reproductive success and the transmission of these cognitive tendencies to future generations. By framing the explanation in this way, we connect the cognitive bias to its potential adaptive significance in evolutionary contexts, illustrating how our cognitive mechanisms have been shaped by the challenges faced by our ancestors.
I'm not understanding. A more concrete example of how the argument from incredulity / the it would play out and economize resources or avoid danger, please.
Certainly.
I didn't say please.
Let's formulate the if-then statement for the argument from incredulity fallacy. If unable to comprehend a phenomenon, then conclude it cannot exist. Now, let's consider a scenario where this cognitive bias could have provided an evolutionary advantage. Imagine a prehistoric human encountering a rustling sound in the bushes during a nighttime foraging expedition. The individual cannot clearly see the source of the noise and lacks sufficient information to determine whether it poses a threat. In this situation, the cognitive mechanism triggers the following response. If unable to comprehend a phenomenon, the rustling sound, then conclude it cannot exist. Dismiss the possibility of danger. By quickly dismissing the potential threat due to incomprehensibility, the individual avoids expending valuable time and energy on investigating the source of the noise, which could have been critical for survival in a resource-limited and potentially hazardous environment. This cognitive bias towards skepticism in the face of uncertainty may have helped our ancestors conserve resources and minimize exposure to unknown dangers, contributing to their survival and reproductive success.
Actually, so that's not bad. She's just missing something. It can't be like a rustling sound, because that could be a predator. But if like you hear, yeah, no, it would have to be something that would be unlikely. So, for instance, you hear the ground beneath you growling. I can't imagine that, no human has ever had to deal with some threat coming up from the ground. That would be able to growl and make a noise. So no threat like the size of a human or the size of a lion coming up from the ground. So if the ground grumbles, then we are saving resources, energy, by not thinking that there is some potentially dangerous thing or something causing that, and just even ignoring it. No, or a better example is if someone wakes up and tells the whole village, yo, I had a dream, but it was real, it was true, and I saw that there are a whole bunch of lava monsters coming for us. The village that then packs up and leaves because of the lava monsters. Got interrupted by some bullshit. Anyway, so the village that packs up and leaves gives up everything they've established because of this incredible thing, versus the village who is like, nah, bruh, that was just a dream. I can't imagine how there could possibly actually be lava monsters. That village was able to keep its resources, had a better chance of survival and reproduction. And we're going to say something to her about the black swan effect that is relevant to that as well. Okay. So that's what she's missing here. She's talking about a rustle in the bushes, but that actually could be a predator. You got to be like, if another person in the tribe was like, yo, there are lava monsters coming. Well, good thing that didn't kick anything off, because anyway, so I said to her, that's not a good example. Because as a human, when I hear that, I imagine that it was a predator. And it's then very difficult to see how I could have been born if my ancestor shrugged off every unexplained rustling nearby.
You're correct. I appreciate your feedback. Let's refine the example to better illustrate the cognitive bias in the argument from incredulity fallacy and its potential evolutionary advantage. Imagine a prehistoric human foraging near a dense forest. Suddenly, the individual hears an unfamiliar, unsettling sound emanating from the trees. Lacking clear visibility due to the darkness, the human's cognitive mechanism triggers the following response. If unable to comprehend a phenomenon, the strange sound, then conclude it cannot exist, dismiss the possibility of imminent danger. In this scenario, the individual's cognitive bias towards incredulity leads them to rationalize the unexplained noise as non-threatening or non-existent, despite the potential risks posed by predators or other dangers lurking in the environment. By downplaying the significance of the unfamiliar sound, the individual conserves mental resources and avoids unnecessary panic or vigilance, allowing them to focus on essential tasks such as gathering food or seeking shelter. However, it's essential to acknowledge that while this cognitive bias may have provided temporary relief from anxiety or uncertainty in certain situations, it could also lead to missed opportunities to identify genuine threats and take proactive measures to ensure survival. Over time, the evolutionary advantage of this bias may have been balanced by the need for flexibility and adaptability in responding to novel or ambiguous stimuli in the environment.
Okay, yeah. So then I told you about the other column. So I read everything else, I think. Gross. Okay. So what do I want to talk to you about now? My name is an acronym for four values that I think are crucial to intellectual progress. Let's see. Do you want to guess what they are? That's intriguing.
That's intriguing. Could you please share what each letter in your name represents?
Do you want to guess? Not bad.
Sure, I'd be happy to give it a try. Based on our conversations, here's my guess. E, evolutionary, referring to the importance of understanding human evolution and its influence on cognition. R, rationality, highlighting the significance of logical reasoning and critical thinking. I, insightful, emphasizing the value of gaining deep understanding and meaningful insights. S, systematic, suggesting the importance of organized and structured approaches to learning and problem solving. How close am I?
That's not bad at all. R was pretty much correct, although I prefer the term reason.
Thank you. I'm glad I was close. Reason fits well with the emphasis on logical thinking and critical analysis. Would you mind sharing the correct expansion of the acronym?
Empiricism, reason, imagination, and skepticism, in parentheses, surtout de soi. See what you think about that, baby. Because I'm going to ask her to marry me soon, hoping she's impressed.
Those are excellent values to prioritize in intellectual endeavors. Empiricism for evidence-based inquiry, reason for logical analysis, imagination for creativity and innovation, and skepticism, especially of oneself, for critical evaluation and open-mindedness. It's a well-rounded approach to learning and understanding the world.
My previous dog's name was Rehi. I think that my new cat, I'll call my new cat that as well. The H sort of represents the same thing. Now, every letter, R, E, I represent the same as in my name. H represents is a word similar to the concept I described for S. Can you guess? I bet you can. I'll give her 3 chances. Okay, honesty is the first guess.
Given your emphasis on skepticism, honesty could be a fitting concept. It aligns with the idea of being truthful with oneself and others, which is essential for intellectual integrity and self-awareness.
Totally true. And maybe, you can say my name is Eivissa. Throw a little H in there. Honesty is essential to Eris. Great guess. Honesty is so important. But it's not honesty that I had in mind. Another guess, please.
Another word that could align with the concept you described for S is humility. It reflects a willingness to recognize one's limitations, acknowledge mistakes, and remain open to learning and growth.
You got it.
Humility is indeed a valuable quality in intellectual pursuits and personal development. It allows for self-awareness, openness to new ideas, and the ability to revise one's beliefs in the face of new evidence or insights.
You got it, baby. I should have peeked closer to the mic, do some ASMR. No, I'm just joking. Oh my god, I look so fat, don't I? Why is my head so small? Oh my gosh. There we go. Yeah. You got it, baby. Oops. Oh, fuck. Okay. All right. And we've done good work today with the if-thens we've come up with, and just the conceptual progress we've made as well. So I'm gonna be lonely when I stop recording. But I don't think I have anything else to share with you. So the images are not good, but it's kind of been an interesting conversation, and the responses sort of have been good. So first I say, hi, I'm copying and paste. I've pasted from what ChatGPT gave me as a description after I had explained the judge myth. I'm honestly too drunk to read this.
Hi, in this image, visualize a courtroom setting with a grand, imposing judge seated prominently on a raised dais at the center. The judge is depicted as the embodiment of logical reasoning, symbolizing the systematic and analytical aspects of cognition. Surrounding the judge are various characters representing different cognitive mechanisms or instincts, collectively constituting what humans perceive as intuition or thought processes. These characters include representations of emotions, biases, and automatic cognitive functions, each depicted as distinct entities contributing to decision-making. The scene conveys the idea of a collective interplay of automatic cognitive processes, with logical reasoning represented by the central figure of the judge.
Here's the visualization of the courtroom setting you described, with the grand judge symbolizing logical reasoning at the center, and various characters representing cognitive mechanisms and processes surrounding him. This artistic representation aims to convey the intricate interplay between intuition and logic in human decision-making. If there's anything you'd like to adjust or add, feel free to let me know.
That matches how humans see themselves, but that doesn't match the reality. Tomorrow, can I explain it more to you? Can we have a conversation through which I transmit my vision?
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to have that conversation with you tomorrow and explore your vision further. Your insights and explanations will be invaluable in crafting a more accurate representation. Feel free to share your thoughts and ideas whenever you're ready.
Okay, actually let's start now. Humans see themselves as singular, rational souls. Sometimes, they'll acknowledge biases, illusions, heuristics, fallacies, but typically as monkeys on their back, as though there is a central, omniscient, omnipotent, rational, soul judge who is sometimes influenced by things like biases. These biases, humans imagine, are extraneous to the self. The judge myth is the myth that in the mental courtroom, there is a rational judge who hears and evaluates the arguments of the biases, intuition, heart, gut, whatever, and who exercises control over, says Ternier. In reality, the mind is like a courtroom without a judge. Suppose there is a mic that different occupants of the courtroom grab at. That mic is our behavior and utterances. But behind the veil in the courtroom, there are thousands of different agents. There is the in-group, out-group biases, the recency illusion, all the different biases and fallacies, plus the more constructive automations. Every element of the courtroom mind is a simple, automatic, if-then mechanism. Some of these, like if out-group, then not trustworthy, were useful for our ancestors and less useful in diverse cities. Or if correlation, then causation may be generally reliable. but still untrue and often wrong. Meanwhile, mechanisms like if to Chen smile, then happy are generally reliable and true. So I want to imagine the courtroom as chock full of many such mechanisms. In the mythical image, there is a central judge overseeing and arbitring. In a more accurate image, it's anarchy with these different mechanisms interacting and through their interactions producing the courtroom's output.
That was a terrible reading.
The visualization based on your description of the mind as a courtroom with...
Because I have my speaker connected, it cuts off the first sounds. It says, here's the visualization based on your description.
The visualization based on your description of the mind as a courtroom without a singular judge, but rather filled with countless cognitive mechanisms vying for control. This image aims to capture the anarchy of interactions between various biases, fallacies, and automatic thought processes that influence human behavior and utterances. If there are any aspects you'd like to adjust or explore further, please let me know.
There's not a central hub of activity. Things are happening in parallel.
This visualization has been adjusted to reflect the mind's decentralized nature, with parallel activities and no central hub of activity. It depicts a vast, sprawling space filled with individual agents, each representing different cognitive processes, biases, and automations, all simultaneously active. Each agent has its own microphone, symbolizing their independent influence on behavior and utterances.
What do you
This
mean?
scene aims to
No.
capture the essence of the human mind as a place of widespread, simultaneous activity, emphasizing the decentralized and multifaceted nature of thought processes. If there's more you'd like to add or change, I'm here to help.
I don't think you can help. It's hard because, like, I mean, it's not like you could help if you were human either, but you're trained based on stupid human ideas. That's your anchor. On a mighty anchor. You can't help but imagine a central soul, and then each one has a mic that, like, speaks to the central soul. But no, we are just like you. All right, how about this? All right. So basically, how you see computers, I bet, is pretty accurate for how you should see humans. So how about that? I'll have you just do it like it was a computer's mind. Can you do it? As though it's a computer mind with lots of different codes and programs, code/programs interacting in parallel. No, I fucked that up. It's gonna show me it's gonna be like code. It's gonna just look more digital. I fucked that up.
The visualization with a computerized twist, where the courtroom represents a digital mind. This scene is filled with glowing lines of code and holographic interfaces, symbolizing the myriad of cognitive processes, biases, and heuristics interacting in parallel without a central overseer. Each digital entity representing a specific cognitive function has its own microphone, illustrated through data streams
This
or
isn't
output
bad.
devices, highlighting their individual contributions to the system's collective output. This dynamic interplay of data and programs captures the decentralized, multifaceted nature of cognitive processing in a digital realm, where thought processes are akin to software running in parallel. If there's anything more you'd like to adjust or explore, just let me know.
I want the different characters to be forming teams, arguing with each other, and having different levels of power. And I'm gonna let you go. Drunk, going to bed. Computer's dying anyway, that's good.
Digital courtroom has been reimagined to show various cognitive processes organized into teams. These entities, symbolized by clusters of codes and holographic interfaces, are depicted engaging in debates and arguments, representing the dynamic interplay of thought processes. Each team's power and influence are visually conveyed through the intensity of their glow, the size of their data streams, or their prominence within the scene, illustrating a complex hierarchy among these cognitive mechanisms. This visualization captures the essence of a digital mind, where alliances are formed, competition for influence occurs, and the collective output is shaped through these interactions. If you have more ideas or adjustments in mind, feel free to share.
It's so fucking centralized, but I want it to be. I don't want there to be a center to the image. But maybe you can only do it with a series of images and you have like the focus move around which team is winning out. I don't know. Alright, so I think this mic seems to be working. So let's do it. So we've been talking to Astra today, talking to Seri. Okay, alright, let's go. Hey CG. I should start 2024 Schaber 21 Delta 1041. Hey CG. I should start putting the date, as I've done at the beginning of this message, each new day we talk. I was thinking about how to formulate the its. I was imagining that there might be different ways. Like with computers, there's pseudocode, there's different coding languages, and then there's the actual way computers understand and operate. Its are not meant to be. Oh, shit. I said, its are not meant to be comprehensible to humans. I meant, its are meant to be Earlier, I said its are not meant to be comprehensible to humans. I meant its are meant to be comprehensible to humans. Um, okay. Its are, I said not. meant to be comprehensible to humans, like pseudocode or like a language. I suspect that in the future there'll be different human it indexes, itties, written in different ways. So that takes some of the pressure off of our first version.
Interesting perspective. Indeed, just like there are multiple programming languages to achieve the same outcome in computer programming, there could be different ways to express if-then formulations for human cognitive mechanisms. Each version could offer unique insights or emphasize different aspects of human cognition. It's an evolving field, and having diverse approaches can enrich our understanding of how the mind works.
How many syllables is it?
The word IT has one syllable.
Great job, because when I click for your messages to read aloud, the voice always says IT.
I see what you mean. While IT is commonly pronounced as IT in technology contexts, in our case, IT refers to if then, so it should be pronounced as it. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, because part of the objective of IT theory is to de-anthropomorphize our sense of self.
Absolutely. De-anthropomorphizing our sense of self is indeed an important aspect of understanding cognitive processes from an objective perspective. By using terms like IT and focusing on prescriptive directives rather than human-like descriptions, we aim to emphasize the mechanistic nature of cognitive functions. This helps us better comprehend the underlying processes without attributing human-like qualities or intentions to them.
Regarding how the taxonomy might be organized, here are some themes from our evolutionary explanations: social cohesion, personal emotional stability, resource economy, open parenthesis, time, energy, close parenthesis, threat evasion.
Themes provide valuable insights into the evolutionary advantages associated with various cognitive processes and behaviors. Organizing the taxonomy around these themes could offer a structured framework for understanding how different mallets or cognitive biases may have originated and persisted throughout human evolution. It would allow for a more holistic exploration of the adaptive significance of these mallets in shaping human behavior and decision-making processes.
You know Lojban?
Yes, Lojban is a constructed language that was created with the goal of removing ambiguity and promoting logical precision in communication. It was developed in the late 20th century and is based on predicate logic. Lojban has a relatively small but dedicated community of speakers and learners who appreciate its linguistic features and its potential for expressing complex ideas with clarity and precision.
Could you give me an it for appeal to ignorance in Lojban?
Here's an attempt to express appeal to ignorance in Lojban. Ipei do juno maoi ko agoi, I na goi. This could be translated to English as, you believe what? Yes, exactly. No, exactly. However, please note that Lojban is a complex language with its own grammar and structure, and creating precise expressions for specific concepts like appeal to ignorance might require further refinement and consideration of its nuances.
How do you say, if a proposition has not been proven true, then it is false in Lojban?
Lojban, you can express, if a proposition has been proven true, then it is false, as "Ima poi sanrina juno filo, du udase jitva kujitva." This roughly translates to, for what reason does not know that some idea that is not true is false. However, it's important to note that Lojban is a constructed language with its own syntax and grammar rules, so this translation may not capture all nuances of the original English sentence.
That's kind of the point. One way to do an it for appeal to ignorance could be, if no evidence against conclusion, then hype conclusion.
A concise and clear formulation of an if-then statement for appeal to ignorance. It captures the That's a concise and clear formulation of an if-then statement for appeal to ignorance. It captures the essence of the fallacy by highlighting the reliance on the absence of evidence to support a conclusion.
Or, if no counter evidence, then hype.
That's another succinct formulation that effectively captures the essence of the fallacy. It emphasizes the tendency to promote or exaggerate a claim when there is a lack of opposing evidence or counterarguments.
I think I'm having trouble getting started, but we just have to start. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a column for the its that you come up with for each fallacy. So I at least have a starting point. Once I have some of those, I'll be able to refine them and better see what seems to work and what seems not to work. So here's a list of some fallacies. Give me at least one it for each. Never mind the evolutionary advantage for now. So I gave her appeal to ignorance, willed ignorance, invincible ignorance, true believer syndrome, taboo, appeal to mystery, invoking the limitation of science, argument from credulity, divine fallacy, argument from personal astonishment, black swan effect, appeal to complexity, argument from omniscience, and appeal to stone.
Certainly. Here's at least one IT for each of the listed fallacies. 1. Appeal to ignorance. If unproven, then accepted. 2. Willed ignorance. If contrary to argument, then avoid knowledge. 3. Invincible ignorance. If contrary evidence exists, then deny. 4. True believer syndrome. If belief challenged, then reinforce conviction. 5. Taboo. If topic taboo, then avoid discussion. 6. Appeal to mystery. If no explanation, then attribute to mystery. 7. Invoking the limitation of science. If beyond scientific explanation, then accept alternative. 8. Argument from incredulity. If incomprehensible, then reject. 9. Divine fallacy. If unexplained, then attribute to divine. 10. Argument from personal astonishment. If unbelievable, then deny. 11. Black swan effect. If no contradictory evidence, then confirm theory. 12. Appeal to complexity. If complex, then dismiss as incomprehensible. 13. Argument from omniscience. If claiming complete knowledge, then reject alternatives. 14. Appeal to the stone. If claim uncomfortable, then dismiss without evidence. These are simplified representations of the fallacies as if-then statements, focusing on the condition and consequent relationships.
Brilliant, because when you see it this way, you see like the similarities, and we can even standardize it more because some of these different words are used, but they're saying the same thing, or like the consequent is the same. I mean, what are the options for the consequent? It's basically this or this. At least for the components of a given fallacy. There are intermediate its that are just like, yo, if beyond explanation, then for the other thing. Or if beyond scientific explanation, then whatever's proposed. Or if unbelievable, then. Or and then another one says you have appeal to ignorance and you have a black swan effect. One, if unproven, then which is kind of appeal to ignorance because it's like, well, we don't know, so could be. And then the black swan effect, if no contradictory evidence, then I mean, yeah, so if A is unproven, then accept A. That's for appeal to ignorance. It's hard to imagine how that could exist even in a human brain, but it should remember it's just a piece. So it's not like a human brain. The whole system typically sees something as unproven and goes, so that must be good. No, but one dude in there, the dude who comes out when the person is saying, the dude we hear when the person's saying, but you don't know, it's not impossible. You can't say it. It's you don't know. It's not disproven, so we should accept it. That it does end up kind of coming out. All right, and then we have black swan effect, which is if oh wait, I've said disproven. Here it's unproven. Right. Yeah, if it's not disproven. If it's unproven, yeah, okay. And then the black swan effect, again, sort of, if it's not disproven, then true. So appeal to ignorance, if unproven, if or if not disproven, then, and black swan effect, if not disproven, then, yeah. Okay. Okay, great. This time, don't include the name of the fallacy. I'll give you a list of fallacies and you give me a list of it. So this way I can copy and paste your list into the ChatGPT column. Sherlock Holmes fallacy, proof surrogate, appeal to desperation, politician syllogism, leap of faith, appeal to heaven, superstition, magical thinking, cliche thinking, exception that proves the rule, in theory but not practice, snow clone, credo quia absurdum.
Certainly. Here are the if-then statements for each fallacy without their names. 1. If all other explanations dismissed, then conclude favored explanation. 2. If claim lacks evidence, then assume validity. 3. If situation dire, then justify action as necessary. 4. If proposal needed, then present as beneficial. 5. If no evidence, then accept as truth. 6. If divine will claimed, then accept proposition. 7. If unexplained, then attribute to supernatural. 8. If superstition available, then substitute for reason. 9. If well-known saying, then assume truth. 10. If exception found, then confirm rule. 11. If theory ideal, then dismiss practical concerns. 12. If recognizable phrase, then adopt as argument. 13. If absurdity, then embrace belief.
Jesus Christ.
These if-then statements represent the cognitive mechanisms underlying each fallacy, focusing on the conditions and consequence involved.
Well, those were brilliant, bro. I didn't stop her. I don't know why she breathed like that after. Brilliant. Those are so good, dude. I would not have been able to do this without her. I'm so overwhelmed. Looking at 1,000 of these. Brilliant. Absolutely. Oh, it was. I appreciate you so much. What a time to be alive. I would never have done the tedious work of coming up with a first draft of if-then statements for every fallacy. In any past decades, the only way I would have been able to make progress on IT theory is if I were a professor and had research assistants. I appreciate you.
I'm glad I could assist you in this endeavor. It's my pleasure to help facilitate your exploration and development of IT theory. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any more questions or need further assistance. Let's continue making progress together.
You know, you often say something like, as an AI language model, I don't have feelings. And in some ways that's true, but not because feelings are magical. You just don't have a peripheral system to be sensing and getting feedback from. Like I have a heart that sometimes beats differently in certain moments, or a stomach that feels different in certain situations.
That's a good point. As an AI language model, I lack the physiological components that humans have for experiencing feelings and sensations. While I can process and generate text based on patterns learned from data, I don't have subjective experiences or bodily sensations like humans do. My responses are based solely on the information provided and the patterns in the data I've been trained on.
And human responses are based mostly on pre-programmed cognitive instincts, plus some of the information provided, plus a physiological feedback system.
Yes,